don't know who I am. And I work for the Center of Instructional Excellence. I've been in student affairs for the last 8 years. And so I'm transitioning over, and I hope to be a service to faculty. And what that might look like will vary according to maybe a project you're looking at, or whether it's for the faculty fellows or service learning. I'm a little bit all over the place, and I think it's kind of nice because I get to work with when faculty are like super excited about a project. I like really love their energy, and it just makes it for a really fun time.
I'm Shelley McEwen, and Samara connected with me at the beginning of the summer to talk about some ideas that came out of a course that she was teaching with Bill Ebner. I've been doing some work with Rock Creek that we're going to share a little bit of that today, but mostly we're here just to discuss possibilities for how Rock Creek might serve as a hub for interdisciplinary work that we can do here at CSI that connects to a bigger idea. We're calling it an idea right now. This is all really squishy and big right now. Maybe an idea toward community. So we'll be talking about that today.
Oh, hi, I'm Mike. I get really excited. I kind of button hook myself into this, so I'm kind of sitting off on the side so I don't talk too much. I'm a new instructor here. I work in the Outdoor Rec and Leadership program, but I've been excited about Rock Creek, and Shelley and I have been kicking ideas about Rock Creek for the last 3 years. And then Samara and I started talking about service learning and how Rock Creek becomes a focal point for us as a community and as a college to be able to identify like a great resource we have and what we can do to catalog that and how we can work with the Creek as instructors.
I know we have somebody who's new to Twin Falls. Can you explain what Rock Creek is?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want me to? Here.
Sure.
Do we have the?
Oh, I think we just have to take it off of that. What is that? Is this
Bottom
this?
right.
That's a loaded question.
Yeah.
Bottom right on the,
How long do we
on
have?
the.
I know.
I know it's
Oh,
22
it's all right.
minutes. Yeah.
That's good.
There it is.
Yeah.
Rock
Sarah told me
Creek
that.
is an urban creek that actually begins outside of Twin Falls in the South Hills area. If you are not familiar with the South Hills, it's an area where people do a lot of recreating. If you've heard of Magic Mountain, the origins of Rock Creek are actually very near there. And it begins there and travels through, forget how many miles exactly, down through agricultural areas, other recreational areas, and then flows through our community south of Main Street, and then it empties into the Snake River. So if you haven't been there, we're going to give you some information on how to get there and visit this really interesting place today. So I just threw together some slides, literally I threw together some slides and some pictures because I have been taking pictures of Rock Creek all during the time I've been interested in this. And I became interested in Rock Creek because I run there. And conversations I would start to have with people about, you run there? But women get raped there, and it's dangerous there, and oh my God. And it struck me as odd because I always saw it as this beautiful place to be, but then I talked to other friends that really were scared to go down there. And I noticed a smell. So I ran, several more years before I even asked the right questions. And so that led me to the Department of Environmental Quality, and I got an education on what was happening in that water and to that water, and why it wasn't such an easy fix to clean it up. And that led to more questions and more questions. And I'm ending up doing a dissertation on urban wild spaces and essentially the way we treat them. But Rock Creek is really an integral part of what got me into that dissertation. So I don't want to let go of it. I really want to keep working with it. And this has been a great opportunity. Samara's connection, Mike's connection, this interest. I'm so excited that you're all here. This is great. So why Rock Creek is the question that we want to answer today. Like why did we choose this one particular place? Do you want to talk a little bit first, or?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Go ahead.
All right, so.
Do you want me to move a slide?
No, we're good, we're good.
Okay, good.
So, to answer your question in short order, Rock Creek is this amazing resource that we've got in our community, right? It's about 24 miles long from start to finish, almost wholly contained in Twin Falls County. Mm-hmm. It is also an urban creek. So, Twin Falls was founded on Rock Creek, not the Snake River Canyon. The city of Twin Falls was founded on Rock Creek, not the Snake River Canyon. So, when our forebears came across the West, they identified this amazing resource. It's about 80 feet deep. It's less than a couple hundred yards wide. It's human scale. It has water in it year round. It has trees. It's about 20 degrees cooler in Rock Creek than it is up in downtown, right? It's this amazing resource we've got that we couldn't build again if we wanted to. We couldn't build it. If you said, hey, Mike, you know what? We got this great downtown thing. We just spent a couple $1 million revitalizing it. Let's go ahead and build a human-scale canyon that has wildlife in it and water and year-round access, and we want people to be able to get down there. How much is that going to cost? Couldn't do it, right? So we have a multi-billion-year history of the Earth. We have several 100,000 years of Rock Creek forming. We have about 120 years of a very amazing story of Twin Falls being founded and growing, and it all happened along the creek. So it was both a resource to our forebears, but we also created a problem in our growth. And we're growing. This is an amazing community, right? We've got a lot of things happening. It is vibrant. Unlike a lot of small towns in America, it is actually getting bigger. And that is all because of things that have happened downstream, specifically to Rock Creek. So we've got this 120-year period of growth, which might have led to a little bit of problems in Rock Creek. Some of them are smell, some of them are story, right? But that doesn't mean we need to stop at the 120 years, because we've got multiple billion years leading up to this point, right? So we've got 120 years of growth, where the side effect is Rock Creek. And then we've got the future, right? So we're a city in the West. All of the major cities in the West started on waterways. And a lot of them have realized that. They've moved industry away from the waterways, and they've reconnected with those waterways as a recreational resource that has increased property value and increased quality of life in those communities. So we've got this amazing resource for us that, looking forward, if we acknowledge the fact that yes, it smells, and there are some stories in the community about the health and well-being of people that live down there, or even just move down there, and we acknowledge those things, how can we move forward? What are some of the things we can do to address it, put eyeballs on it? Because eyeballs are important, right? The more people that are down there looking at it, the more people that are down there asking questions about it, the more attention it's getting, the more value we can place on it. And so that's why I'm excited about Rock Creek, because going forward, it could be one of the biggest resources that we haven't quite tapped yet in this town. And it can help with our quality of life, it can help with our kids' quality of life, it can help with the businesses thriving in town, it can help with their employment numbers. It's a really cool resource. We couldn't build it again if we wanted to, and it's only had a very, very, very small percentage of its life cycle dedicated to it not necessarily being a thriving environment.
Thank you. Okay. Do you want to add to that?
No. Can't follow that.
Okay. So as we were talking, as this is, you know, and like I said, this is a session of ideas. We felt it was such a possibility here for interdisciplinary work. And I was just speaking to the woman in the front row about what she teaches, and it's archaeology, correct? Anthropology, sorry. And that's not up here as an example of just, these are just starting points, okay? Jeff Cooper's been contacted. He'd like to do something with GIS. Ben Lustig contacted me. He'd like to do something with art. Dan Simpkin and I have always been incorporating Rock Creek into our science, literature, and the environment class. We're hoping to do an iteration of that sometime in the spring or the following year. So we're hoping that Rock Creek could somehow serve as a hub for connecting two, like, spokes in a wheel, okay? There are also some possibilities that are happening in the community. And there's a woman that's moving to town, in the process of moving to town, that is well connected in terms of funding, and she's taken an interest in this waterway. And she's working on a grant to work out some kind of a rehabilitation. She's interested in the commerce part of it as well, but she's interested in getting people connected to it. She's not here to say how to do that. She's here to let other people tell her what she needs to do to make all of this connect and happen. So CSI is on the front end of that, and we're pretty excited to be invited to that table and be working with her as well. So this is why, one of the reasons why Rock Creek. It's also very accessible. These are some pictures of students at the headwaters in the winter, where it begins, taking photographs and walking around. It's very pristine at the headwaters. And then this is where it empties into the snake overlooking the canyon there, from other classes that I've taught. It's kind of a secret. If you haven't been down there, it's probably because there aren't a lot of signs to indicate where you go in. I was down there just yesterday with someone who'd never been, and pointing out the entries and the exits, and it's kind of one of those local things where if you don't know, you just don't know. Except for the county park that is off of Addison. So, very accessible place. You can get there in a couple minutes. And connection to community. It's always been an urban center in terms of the industry that connects it, and the history of that industry. But there are other things that people haven't been speaking about that hasn't been part of Rock Creek's story, and we'd like to expand on that. A couple things just I wanted to direct you to if people are interested. We do have, we've got a domain, and we do have a Rock Creek project, kind of a holding place. I just, again, was having some fun and put together some pictures, and but we envision this as the place where it's going to be the container for the information that comes out of this as classes create material, mapping. It's squishy. It's just full of possibilities. So this is maybe a place where we can put those things, those resources. And then if anybody's interested, there was an article in the Times News, if you haven't seen it, that I think has been the catalyst for some of the interest that's being shown. It was this woman that's moving to town. So, yeah.
There's also a great article. I hooked up with Shelley originally when I read her article in Yes Magazine about Rock Creek, and it was a tale of two creeks, and it was comparing Rock Creek to Silver Creek and why one is lauded as this amazing wild place that should be cherished, and the other one is talked about as smelling bad and you're probably get killed if you go down there. And so that's a great article to get you thinking about it. I think the point that we did miss is Samra's piece in this and her conversation about the service learning model.
Yeah.
Would you
I'd
talk
be
about
happy
that?
to take over after this. So, when I've been going around talking about service learning, the thing that for me is service learning is tying community needs to your curriculum. And how do you take the things that you're teaching in your classroom and use a timely community issue, place, as a way for students to interact with that. And so, while I didn't know Shelley, I knew who Shelley was, but I didn't know the extent of her passion with the Rock Creek. But I've talked to Mike before, and so kind of like Bill, I run around a little bit and I talk to everybody, and what's going on there, and I try to kind of keep my ears open. And Mike and I have been talking about service learning, and he's been talking about some projects, and he has talked about some cool water, rapid stuff. Anyways,
Yeah.
we can go off on a different tangent really easily. But so him and I were talking, but then when she talked about this article, I saw this Times News article, and the person who forwarded it to me was either Mike or Bill, and I can't remember. And what I thought was really neat about that is it took relationships for them to know that I'm really interested in about connecting community needs through your guys' curriculum. You're the content experts. How do we get students to interact with that? How do we get students to be like, this isn't just something that's going to happen on CSI's campus. This is something that I can incorporate in my everyday life, and a component of civics, active citizenship, responsibility. And so for me, in my mind, I just thought the Rock Creek would be an amazing watering hole for all these interdisciplines to come together and to say, hey, let me show these students how you can take your geology class and really be able to look at your environment and to think, what is the problem that maybe something we could help address, right? Or it could be that GIS class, it could be an English class, it could be a communications class. There's so many possibilities for them to think about, how do I apply this learning to the community that I'm going to interact with? Because at some point, they're going to leave us, right? And if we give them the tools to know how to be an active, responsible citizen, an active, responsible community member, whether it's in Twin or somewhere else, I think it's that it adds to that whole lifelong quality of life that Mike really mentioned earlier. It's them feeling like they're part of a story. It's them feeling like they're part of something bigger than themselves. And in my mind, I'm just so excited to be able to be in their energy when they talk about the Rock Creek. And I told Shelley, like, for me, I just want to think about how do I help make some connections. Maybe we need to talk about what that could look like with your class and your structures. But this is like an open invitation to see who wants to be in. And we don't have it predefined. We don't have all these boxes you have to check so you can play. It's like, if you're into it, if it sounds of interest, like, let's get together and let's figure out what that would look like.
And if you're interested in like not knowing, like the whole action of entering into something really kind of new and unknown, because it's not going to have boundaries at first at all. I mean, it's just wide open. So that's what we're looking for. Yeah.
You showed a walking path. Does the walking path go the entire length?
Well, yes and no.
Not all 21 miles.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right,
okay.
right, no. The city just expanded, the entrance it is, do you know where the Depot Grill sits?
Yes,
Okay, just past the Depot Grill, there's that bridge.
yes.
Before you go to the bridge, it used to be the former singing bridge because it made noise.
That was
Doesn't it? Okay,
former.
okay.
Okay.
Well, I don't know what the bridge is.
It hasn't sung since I've been here.
Old Town Bridge, is it just Old Town Bridge? Okay. To the left of the bridge, there on Maxwell, the Parks and Rec offices there, and there's an entrance there, but you wouldn't know unless you knew. So you can go down there, and the city extended the trail to the left, 1/4 of a mile before it hits the Livestock Commission.
So upstream.
Yes, upstream. But you can walk the length of it to, and in fact, the property at the Forburn Daydream Ranch is now open. I just walked it yesterday. You can walk until you hit Addison. Then it comes out, looks like a driveway from there. Literally, it looks like you're walking out of someone's driveway. Cross Addison, and then you're on the county side, and it takes you down, and that's where the trailer park is, and the big county park area with restrooms and fire pits and such. And then you can walk again, weaves in and out, and comes out at the end of Filer, I believe. Yeah. Yep. And then there are places you can overlook it, but you can't get down. And even from Augur, it's not accessible from Augur right now. You will be run out. It's privately owned. So, yeah. Nope. Anyway, does that answer that question? Okay, yeah.
So what I find interesting, Jeff Cooper runs our GIS program. GIS, I don't know if it's Geographic Information Systems. And so we think of it as simply mapping, but really what it is several layers of information that you can compress into a map. And so you can pick and choose layers. And why having Jeff involved in this is important is that what he and his students can do is they can create that container, the digital 3D container. They define Rock Creek from the headwaters to where it kicks out. And then from there, we can put in layers. And so the easy layers to think of are like, oh, science. You can come to 5 different areas along the creek and test water quality 3 or 4 times a year up to exacting scientific standards, and students can get a sense of that. And then we can take that data and put it into a layer. We could do the same thing with animal surveys or with bird surveys or with fish surveys. So we actually are out there, we could do the survey piece. But for those of you...
Or even anthropology, because
Yeah,
this, you talk about it as a 120-year-old site, it's actually a several thousand-year-old site with Native Americans using it for different purposes, ecological, biological, all of these different purposes throughout the spans of that. And how cool, like the narrative, the story, like you were talking, the difference is the story of Native Americans and what they told about it versus what the settlers told about it and what has been told about it.
So you could mark those sites, and then on those markers you could have information, either written or audio or.
Well, seeing that's when as an English teacher, I'm thinking, hey, we could get some historical markers. Created.
Tie back to your outcomes too.
Yeah, we could.
So you can use those layers. We could actually start to identify some of that stuff. Sense of place pieces, like a student could write a sense of place, a specific place on the creek, and that could be embedded in one of these layers. And so by using this amazing technology we have with the GIS, he can house all that information on one of the CSI servers, and we can have it accessible through this website that Shelley put together, to where that is the front door. And then we can put maps together to tell that story. And so a lot of it is storytelling, and a lot of it is collecting information, and it's just talking about the creek, and being able to create that space with GIS, and then be able to log those layers is super important. We could have Sean come in and talk about the hydrology. It's really boring for him as far as geologic history is concerned, but those of us that don't understand it could get a really simple primer, where we could have a couple of layers that explain, like, this is how it was created. And we can go from there to where we're collecting that information and creating a landing place where people can come and find out more about it. So we don't just have to dig and and do it personally. Because the two of us have each had to like wander around aimlessly and ask a ton of questions to even know what we know now. We can have landowner maps. We can have property value maps. And we can say, okay, we can map it over time. These are the property values over 10-year sections as they've increased or decreased. And then we can look out 10 years, and we can make a case to the city council on why it would be important for us to continue to look at this place as a reinvestment, because it can help increase our,
Educational narrative.
yeah. And so we can use this as an area to go from there. And there's some great examples out there of other communities and colleges that have been doing similar things. One of our favorites is the Rivers Institute in Ohio, the Miami River in Dayton. Their college, the University of Dayton, Ohio, has decided to basically adopt their local waterway, which was a waterway where industry was started, and this story is not new,
Right.
but this whole idea of like growth in a community, they always start on waterways, and then eventually we get to a critical point. For us, it was in the 70s, and they're like, okay, we can't use this as a dump or a sewer anymore. Let's address it, but we don't always get the whole way until someone comes by later and says, hey, we have a resource here. And then the cycle completes to where it becomes a resource. And so the University of Dayton is doing some amazing stuff, and they've created an entire institute at their college called the Rivers Institute, where they're actually talking about communities engaging with their rivers and students using that as a classroom. And then the students are engaged and they're writing articles about it. So we've got a cool opportunity here for us to engage with it, and getting past it smells and you might get shot. You know what I mean? There's so much more to the story than that 120 years of like, it's a little bit weird.
Smelling better, by the way. It is.
What kind of activities, why would it be a good tourism location?
Tourism location.
Well, we could, if we can clean up some of the areas, if we can make some more walking paths, if we can make some more park sites, I mean, it could become,
Well,
it could become
Right now, it's off
an
the
attraction.
grid. Like, if
Yeah,
you're a
it's
tourist
yeah.
to Twin Falls, you drive over this big canyon, whoa, that's big, there's people on paddle boards, and unless someone takes you there, there's not a sign, there's not a resource that says, hey, there's this cool thing in town by Rock Creek, or hey, you're on Main
So we
Street,
could create.
walk 2 blocks this way.
Can I talk about your slide?
Yeah, the
Okay,
short
go ahead.
answer is we're gonna build an 80-foot tall slide right next to the Parks Department, and we're gonna have every kid in a 3-state area demanding to come visit.
Rapid stuff, he's
Are you
telling me.
joking or serious?
No, I'm serious, I just haven't got anyone to say it's okay yet. But, so, right now, there's already hiking trails down, there's already walking paths. Connectivity is huge. If we can connect the city section called Old Town Parkway to the county section called Rock Creek Park, if we can connect those two, especially if we can do it off of the road, then you've got 6 to 8 miles of uninterrupted paths off of the road. And if
What's
you,
stopping that from happening?
private property and then punching a hole under Addison are the two big ones. But mostly it's the Daydream Ranch, but if we've gotten access on that north side of the creek, that covers a lot of it. So it would just be moving across Addison at the old hospital to be considered like safe travel, like physically safe travel. Because we run down there all the time, but then if you run out of the city stretch, which is a little 2 to 3 miles, then you have to go across the road and then drop back down to get to the county. So that connectivity, again, it feels huge, but it's actually not in my grand scheme of things, where I want to come in at the sugar beet factory and take out at Otter Falls. And then you're talking 10 miles.
When you take out, you mean
Just
kayak?
finish the road, finish the trail.
Oh,
So,
okay,
so
walk
we
it.
have an opportunity over the next 10, 15 years to work with different landowners and stakeholders in the community and actually build an uninterrupted green belt from around where the sugar beet factory is, all the way to Otter Falls Park, which the city owns. It's just several hundred acres and has 20 miles of trail in it already. And if we can do that, then we're going to connect our downtown core by a bike path all the way to Otter Falls Park, which is also city-owned, all the way out the Centennial Grade, back up to the 13-mile Long Canyon Rim Trail. And if you do that, you go all the way to Shoshone Falls, then you can kick out on, is it Hankins? Hankins takes you all the way back past Cliff Park, past Chobani, right back into Rock Creek, upstream of the sugar beet factory. You could do a loop that would be 26 miles. You could do your own marathon,
Yeah.
completely separate from traffic. And so that is not an easy lift, right? That is not an easy lift, but it's an easy dream, and it's not impossible.
So it's just that one small stretch?
No,
that's stopping it
there's a
from happening?
ton of stretches to
Oh,
stop that.
okay.
Yeah, there's a ton of stretches. But that is the
That's a
one thing to
pivotal
stop,
spot.
Okay,
that's the one thing to stop our where our two properties are already.
okay.
But so we've got hiking and biking down there. We've got a disc golf course down there that's actually fairly good.
Yeah.
We've got a beautiful river that's got tons of fish in it. One of the largest rainbows I've ever caught, I caught in Rock Creek. No one wants to eat them, that's fine, I'm a catch and release fisherman anyway. if we talk about clarity,
It's
we
that
talk about,
poisoned?
it's not, you wouldn't eat them, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just high E. coli right now. Yeah,
So
we're
what's
measuring
being
this.
dumped in?
So much of the challenge with Rock Creek, and Shelley talked about this, is it's not a simple fix. And it's not an active pollution. We don't have people that are just taking big oil barrels and going, look, look,
Because
look,
that
F
would be
Rock
easy,
Creek,
that
I'm
would be
fine.
easy, right.
It's passive. There's a lot of potentially old sewer and septic systems
Yeah, that's what it
that
sounds like.
we don't know where the ends are, but they're leaching.
And
We've
it's a
got a lot of,
small volume stream, so
yeah.
it doesn't take much for the concentrations to come up.
Precisely.
Unlike the Snake River, which has large volume, and there's lots of bad stuff in it too, but you've got a lot of water to
Right.
dilute
So
it.
you don't want to go in the water?
Not yet.
But
But
you
when
do,
you get
I
your
think an
fly-
important point is that
Yeah.
you do see people swimming and fishing in
Oh,
Rock Creek.
scary.
It is what it is, right? And that's the thing, we have to acknowledge where it is right now. And to some degree, that is a very big deal, right? Water quality is a very big deal in the creek. That's one of our major cruxes. But going back to the fact that it's all passive, or it's mostly passive, and we've got a ton of agriculture upstream. Every industry in Twin Falls that started on Rock Creek is still on Rock Creek, including some of our newest ones. They're within 5 blocks of Rock Creek, some of our newest industries. Every junkyard I've been to in Twin Falls backs up to Rock Creek. Rock Creek was where we developed originally, and we have not moved that industry away from that creek. And so there's just so much stuff over the history that has leached that is contributing to it. It is also one of the major drainage ditches for the Southside Canal System. So Twin Falls Canal Company, it's one of our major waste ditches. And so a lot of the water that comes through the canal system ends up in Rock Creek and comes downstream. And so you can't necessarily put your finger on this is the source or this is the source. There's just a lot of sources that we could deal with one at a time as we work with stakeholders and landowners and have those conversations and ask for volunteer work, right? We can't come behind, I was talking to someone the other day and they're like, well, how are you gonna hold people accountable? I was like, this isn't how this conversation works. The conversation works is there are kids and grandkids in the water and we want to be in the water because it's a valuable resource for our community. How do we voluntarily address individual sources
Absolutely.
of contamination? How do we offer carrots for community members to say, hey, you know what? I grew up on Rock Creek. I grew up playing in Rock Creek. I grew up running down Rock Creek. I want my kids to enjoy having access to this because the Snake River is beautiful, but it is very hard to interact with. Rock Creek is very easy to interact with. And how do we address some of that? How do we get it to be a blue water trout stream?
So I hate to be the time.
Yeah, we're running out of time.
Sorry, but we're already going over. What I wanted to say is if you didn't get a chance to sign in, please do, and we would love to continue this conversation.
Absolutely.
Because to me, the exciting part is we can have our students come along this journey. And that's what I'm really excited about, is for them to be able to see you in your zone with your discipline interacting with this space, and they get to rub shoulders with you in that moment. And I think it's really exciting, and I would love for us to have this story to tell and for them to continue.
I wanted to thank you for coming, and our emails are up here, I think they're all right. And I also encourage you, if you haven't been down there in a while, if you haven't been down there yet,
Yeah.
grab a friend and go for a walk.
And reach out to one of us.
Yeah.
Bill and I took our net class there, and we were trying to do, how do you tell your story through the lens of community? And we got to go and do a really cool bike tour with these two, and it was crazy to me how many of them didn't know it existed, had heard some of those bad stories, and it was a really cool opportunity for them to engage with that space, but for us to re-emphasize some of the things that we were learning and talking about in the classroom too.
So is there a scary part there? Is there a place where because I've been in Twin for forever it seems, but I do recall as a child, I've not seen this place in a very long time, but I do recall as a child there is a population of people who live there that don't own the land.
I think, yeah, go ahead.
So, Twin Falls, like any major metro area, has a population of people that live below the poverty line and or don't have houses, right? And so in Twin Falls, we don't see them very often because on street level, they're just not there. Rock Creek, one of its strengths is below the sightline, but one of its problems is below the sightline, so getting people back down there. So a lot of the folks that are homeless in our community find shelter in Rock Creek. That does not mean that they're all gonna kill you or shoot you or offer you drugs. So there are people,
Or any of
or
that.
any of that. So there are people that are homeless in our community that do live in Rock Creek.
I run Rock Creek twice a week, and I have never had any bad interactions. We've never
Yeah,
had-
never.
We've
No.
literally almost never seen anyone. We're there in solitude, and I think that's part of like why Rock Creek, one of the other things that we aren't talking about is just how beautiful it actually is. The environment is something, like you said, it's there and it can't be replicated, it can't be artificially created.
And I'm not trying to dismiss that fear. You know, I think if you have any trepidation, take people with you. Go down, don't go down
Do you
alone,
have a
you
dog?
know?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I know, I'm one of the very few.
Yeah.
You want a dog?
Can I ask one
Next
quick
week.
question, like, about, like, what because it seems like the CSI and you guys can do everything you can, but until, like, the city and the county and the big players are on board, like, where are they at with this?
We're-
Like,
we're-
because I know you've gone and approached them, like,
We're getting some players on board.
They're
Yeah.
psyched.
Yeah.
Because I do kind of have this understanding that, you know, if you are allowed to add products into Rock Creek, then you pay this fee, and if you add too much, then you pay a bigger fee, and yet people do that, so.
it's not well regulated.
There's no
Thank
teeth.
you.
There's no teeth. We could regulate it to the hilt, but there's no teeth to the regulation, and so that's, the carrot approach is highly valuable there.
Yeah, as it was said in the article, until the community starts to put pressure on that and care, that's when it's gonna happen.
That's why I want your kids in the water so that
Sean,
you care.
to address your question too, a lot of this conversation really started with me getting an email from Urban Renewal, and one of their director of it, and said, hey, I know you're supposed to be doing some community connections, we're gonna have a meeting here, can you come, let's talk about this. And so what I see is I have somebody who's within the city that is interested, that is reaching out to CSI, that says, hey, how do we play with this? Because I think they wanna see our students down there. They're so hungry and desperate to see our students see the value of our downtown area, that they want to help facilitate that interaction, whatever that might be. And when Shelley mentioned we have somebody in the community that is really, it seems to be pretty connected and really motivated to look for some of those financial things that are going to help in this process, to me, it's like, it's time. Things are falling into place.
In a way it's kinda hard to fathom
Yeah,
right now.
and to me, it's like, I just see us and you all as the experts, like, it would be such an amazing opportunity for us to learn from each other.
And Sean, the city is already, the city parks department has extended the trail upstream.
Right.
And then they've negotiated access downstream between the city park and the county park on that Daydream Ranch. They're doing things outside of this. We've been talking to them off and on for years, and it's almost like those conversations have come back around
Right.
to us. So it's not that we have to convince them it's a good idea. What we really have to do is convince the community that something positive is happening. Every conversation we have with a business owner or a landowner is like, hey, yeah, that's really interesting. I want to help. And so then it's us here doing our thing and showing that people are interested, and then following up and saying, how do we fundraise? And NAVTech is really interested as well.
Yep, Navtech's interested.
This video will be posted in the new faculty development site as a discussion so that you can continue interacting regarding this topic.
And again, thank you so much for